We had some Protoss domination in our very first series. Keen up against his Protoss opponent. Sorry, I was a little bit jarred by me going camera suddenly. But now we're going into, of course, Trust versus Symbol. To see if Symbol can at least push one of our Protosses into the losers match.
Yeah, so far, all the groups of Protoss players have actually done really well. We saw SOS and Classic advance in their group, and then also Ruin in the second group yesterday get into Code S. So today we're going to find out if more Protoss players are able to qualify for Code S. So far it's looking at least pretty good for Myungsik, who finds himself in the winner's match. And our second best of 3 is going to determine if he's going to play a Protoss versus Protoss or if he has to play a PvZ.
Exactly, and Symbol, I'm really looking forward to seeing how well is he going to do today. He's had a little bit of a hiatus, and how in shape is he? We had just recently fallen out, gotten back in, and I think a lot of people are expecting him to get out of this group. Even though it's a really stacked group, it's a tough group, I think most people are saying Symbol's going to go back to Code S.
I would be actually surprised if he doesn't. I saw a lot of his games at the Code A qualifier, and he looked really solid there, as we were used to. And he fell off a little bit and had, of course, a bit of a tough time in the last WCS season. But at the same time, he was really confident in his abilities. Said, like, yeah, I'm going to go back to Code S, and I'm going to be able to do that. Has a lot of support here in the studio as well. We have Senna here. We have the former coach of TSL also in the studio, and they all support him. So I actually think he's going to make it today. I would be surprised if we don't see him.
With the support of his former teammates and former coach here, I think that's definitely going to help him get into the right mindset. Well, that's behind us. What happened with the Nexus not quite making it, but
yeah, you can actually still see that. So right now, what we saw there, it's this full commitment where he really wants to kill the Nexus, and here come those Phoenixes lifting the Marauders as they are the main damage dealers in the battle. And there's just nothing else. There are only a couple of Marines. Even the probes are helping out here, and it got really close. That Nexus went down to 160 hit points, and the Marauders being taken out here immediately with the help of the Stalkers and the rest of the Phoenixes. And at that point, he lost so unbelievably much, he could not recover from this. If he takes the Nexus, kills a couple of probe, he can recover from that, and he puts Myungsik in a very uncomfortable position where the Protoss players like, alright, if I attack right now, I might be able to take the game. If I lose my army, on the other hand, I can never rebuild it because I still have to wait for the second base to come into play again. So Keen at this point, that was just his one shot, and he wasn't able to take it because of the Phoenixes.
Exactly. You know, he didn't necessarily have to commit there, but he made that choice because his early attacks didn't do very much damage. So it was kind of a reasonable choice, but the Phoenix Micro was excellent. His reaction was quick. He picked up only the Marauders, not getting any Marines, because if you pick up a Marine by accident, you know, Phoenix will shoot the Marine, but that gives the Marauder 1 or 2 more shots. Maybe that changes the whole scheme of things.
The one thing that I'm really wondering about is, like, I really expected more Hellions, and I personally would really like to ask him, why did you decide in the game after the Phoenixes shut down your first drop attempt that you would not go into additional Hellions and that you would just go and try and move in with your bio army? Or was that the main reason why you picked Daedalus in the first place? That you said, there's not going to be a big wall that can work against me, so if I go in with a bio army, I might be able to snipe that Nexus. It's not going to be that force fields are kind of suddenly shutting down my entire army. So either he changed his idea, or it was the plan right from the beginning.
I think that might have been his plan to do an aggressive timing like that on Daedalus. It really makes sense because we did see a few force fields, but they weren't able to push it back. It was really the Phoenixes that saved him, not sentries and not the overcharge. So I think that was probably his plan from the beginning. And it also works with the Hellions a little bit by ground to get them through there. It's a little bit tougher to wall them off and to chase them through.
I could really see them just deciding to not go for any Hellion commitment after he saw that Phoenixes were once again the go-to unit for Myungsik, because if you go in with the Hellions again, then the Phoenixes are just going to be there. They're going to pick them up. The Stalkers that are there will deal with the rest and then just one by one pick them off. So maybe he decided to change strategies a little bit when that drop went into the base and didn't really do a lot of damage. But both things work quite well on Daedalus. So I could see, I would really like to ask him. But now we're going to focus on a bit of a different matchup. We have Frost as our first map. Trust for CJ Enters, the Protoss player in the game. And to the right, we have, of course, the Symbol for Team Azubu.
Now this is going to be an interesting match. I mean, a lot of people are thinking Symbol's going to get out of this group for sure. I'm not convinced until I watch this series. If I see how in shape he is right now in this series, I actually didn't catch his game for the qualifier. I know you did. You watched him a little bit more closely. As soon as I see this series, I'll have a pretty good idea whether I think he's going to get out. But I think he definitely could. He's a solid Zerg. Always has been. Let's see how he does in this first best of 3 up against CJ Entis' Trust here at the GSL Code with Melvin Wolf.
versus Symbol.
The Azul play on the first map of the best of three starts to the bottom right of the map in red. And is, of course, Symbol. The Zerg play here who fell off from last WCS season, requalified for GSL Code A in the qualifier. He's in pretty good shape there, and he's determined to go back to Code S. He's going up against the Protoss player. Cross position on the map to the top left. We have Trust for Jantus.
Trust very young, not as experienced in StarCraft II as Symbol is. You can see some little preliminary stats here. But we'll see how Symbol plays here. I really want to see how in shape he is right now. Obviously, if he qualified, he's definitely in shape because it's the hardest qualifier in the world.
Yeah, it was actually like, it was pretty fun to watch him. I took one of the APM videos when he was playing. He's actually a really, really fast player. And he got also a pretty tough grid, if you think about it, because one of the players that he had to face was Squirtle.
Yep.
And he lost to Squirtle with a 1-2, but then took down Fox, another Protoss player, in the same qualifier. Whereas we saw his opponent, we saw Trust going up against two Zerg players, and he defeated both of them with a 2-0. He won against Hitman with a 2-0 and also against Shine. That's a Samsung Shine, by the way.
Yeah, the other Shine we saw yesterday.
Exactly. So, yeah, that was definitely quite something there. He didn't drop a single map against those. And he is pretty good. He has not really the experience that Symbol has, but he has a very good track record against Zerg so far.
He adds 2 extra drones before he makes his spawning pool, so a very greedy hatchery first build, but I like that on this map, and luckily for him, it is cross spawn, so it's going to take the Protoss opponent a long time to get across the map.
Yeah, this is one of those maps where a lot of Zerg players will decide to still go into the spawning pool first. If you look at it from that perspective, it's like if you are starting close position, there is still the danger of the Protoss player finding you first spot and then blocking the hatch. You don't have a pool, and maybe there's a pile and then you can't take that down. Yeah. It's very annoying, since for the third base you have to go quite a long way and you have to expose your third base so much. So Zergs are really, really reluctant sometimes to go into that hatch first build for that very reason, and also, of course, because cannons can be an issue if the Protoss player starts with a forge first. But you also see what Symbol just did, the hatch first build. It's just really a matter of preference on a map like this, whereas usually on a big map like, let's say, Alzim Stronghold, you see nearly exclusively a hatch first build.
Yeah, it's true. No, it's definitely a preference thing and a confidence thing.
Yeah, it depends a little bit on how far the maps are away and how likely it is that your opponent will scout you early on with a probe and can then delay that base and maybe even drop a pylon so that you have to go. And of course, if that happens, the placement of the third base is a big, big issue. And on the Frost in particular, that's something where you really don't want to get the third position first.
You don't want to mess around with that, especially if your opponent spawns to the bottom left, for example, in this case. But or really, you know, if you spawn to the top right and you take the third base there. But his Symbol now is about to identify where his opponent is, and he needs to know, of course, that it's basically been a gateway expand with no Forge and even core before Nexus, so he's going to have to warp gate research really quickly, and we'll be able to pressure him quite early. But in general, Symbol could be very happy with what he was being able to get away with here with his build, and he wants to identify, of course, that the gateway timing is there so that he can play his third base very safely.
The thing for Symbol is right now that he's not going to be too worried about anything just because it's cross position, so everything that is not completely centered around warp gate units takes a long time to actually reach him and attack him, meaning Colossi attacks or Immortal attacks. So he is already starting with very late gas. He goes, or not late gas. He goes into quadruple queens first, takes the double gas between 5:30 and 6 minutes, which is usually what you do then. So he will be able to support that third base that he gets, get that speed up, get that also the lair take up. But in terms of like early game aggression with just a couple of gateway units, those 4 queens alone already do a really good job.
Yeah, and they spread the creeps so far so early, especially on this map where you want to get that third base secured. And he's also just, I mean, like you said, the distance is not a big problem for him. He's got Zerglings on the map, Overlords on the map. It's going to be hard to hide a pylon against him that Symbol's not going to know about. This is a little bit annoying, but it's not going to be too big of a deal, especially because that Mothership Core took so many hits early on.
Yeah, at the same time, we had the chrono. Well, he's trying to chrono boost out his research really fast, so we could see a bit of aggression. The problem for him really being that he doesn't have any presence in terms of proxy pylons just yet, where we see a lot of Overlords being positioned around the map, just trying to get a glimpse of what's going on. And now the Overlord entering the main base, he sees exactly the timing for the warp gates. We have an early third base that is also immediately spotted, and the immediate reaction of Symbol is to just get Zerglings out there. Yeah. Bam, 22 links immediately being built. We have the Roach Warren drop. Speed is on the way, and that could get very dangerous for Trust.
He might actually be expecting Okay, he did see the third base with that Overlord, right?
Yeah, he saw it.
Okay.
That's exactly why he built those links. He was trying to go exactly for the third base as fast as possible. The delayed speed upgrade is a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, that's going to be the problem here, because if he had speed earlier, then he definitely would have been able to go over here and force a cancel. But because it takes him so long, I think the sentries, they have enough energy. He's going to be able to defend this. The cannon's going to be up relatively soon. And Trust is not going to be blindsided by this.
I'm not even sure if Symbol is going to commit here.
I don't think he
realized already what's going on there.
Yeah,
he's probably trying to have a little bit of a poke there. But once he sees all of those sentries, he's still going to at least wait for the speed upgrade to hit.
A ton of drones going down. And yeah, definitely not going to attack with slowlings, that's for sure. Comes over here, and he actually, with speed, finishing right now, wants to maybe get a run by through into the main base. There's a Stalker here. No sentries on the other hand. He's actually going to need to maybe make a pylon here for a second. I think he actually will.
Yeah, and he does. And, well, he's getting 2 of those Stalkers, and the Stalkers, they will go down. He could numb away at a few of those sentries, too. He's trying to get in again, and suddenly the cancel on the pylon. On, oh my god, Trust! So that was not really what he wanted there. He's going to lose a few of the probes, and this is very distracting.
Yeah, this is the worst time for him to cancel that pylon. I think he thought Symbol was just going to walk away. All things considered, the pylon being canceled was really lucky for Symbol. The pylon was not canceled. He might have lost all of his earlings there, so Trust is probably thinking, wow, I can't believe you actually just thought I was going to cancel that pylon. That was kind of a bit of luck, but it works out for Symbol, and it was a bit greedy, I guess, by Trust to cancel it that soon.
Symbol didn't do too much damage on the other hand. He went into the main base, and I think he killed 2 Harvesters, but that's about it. He didn't even get the Stalker that was there. Another good force field by Trust saved the Stalker. So it wasn't too bad for Trust, but that's, of course, one of those moments where your adrenaline just starts kicking in, and you're looking at it and you're like, oh my god, what just happened? And can I really defend against this now?
Yeah, that's for sure. That's, you know, it's a distraction, like you said. The third base, though, for Trust is still uncontested. And he's got a small group of units over here. I don't think he's going to get anything done here with all the roaches being made and 17 Zerlings. I think he's just going to have to recall as soon as he engages. But he might be able to trade okay against some of the Zerlings at the very least.
Well, the Lings are moving in now, and here come those roaches. The recall is going to happen any second now. And there it is. Doesn't lose that 1 sentry. That was very close to dying. But the one thing that we see for Symbol, of course, now that he sees, well, there is a third base for my opponent, I can't really do anything about it, he gets his own 4th.
Right.
And at the same time, we have him with a very, very fast tech actually into the Infestation Pit, so he could go in a long term into maybe even Ultralists and Brood Lords, especially with those ground, the melee upgrades that we see now.
Yeah.
But the Spire is also there. And that's one of the things that is very scary for a Protoss player. You want to have the Spire, of course, to also get a couple of Corruptors in case your opponent goes into a Colossi. But the threat of just a sudden switch in the Mutalisks is massive. That killed so many Protoss players in the past, and this is something that you're very afraid of when you're playing on such a map.
If you lose too many Stalkers for any reason in the game, then you're really vulnerable to this. Or if you commit too much to an Immortal-based or a Colossus-based army, then some of the Mutalisks just don't care about that. And if he can actually, if Symbol can catch this army and trade decently with it, a Mutalist choice would not be a bad one.
Yeah, it's of course going to be more of a late game thing, because at this point he can't really afford to do that. He's planning on a play with a different composition if he can, but it's always an option later down the road. And depending on how the game goes, that Spire just can be morphed into a greater Spire, and we could see any type of play here. But I feel the immediate goal would be to just buy some time and go into Ultralisks first, which works on a map like this as long as you don't engage into funnel points.
Yeah, and he's gonna have to deal with this army before he can even think about that. Here we go. Blink not quite ready. There's a time warp, no force fields against the Zerlings, and this is great for Symbol. And I don't think there's enough energy for a recall. Is there? I can't see it. I can't tell you guys, but I don't think there is. And this is a great trade right now for Symbol.
Goes down, and more roaches and Zerglings are rushing in. This is really bad for the Protoss player. Trust has a big problem at his hands. The entire army for Symbol is taking away the Stalkers. He's on the run, and he's not going to escape. He's going to make Mutas here, Keller. This is exactly what I was saying. If he actually trades well against us, I think he can max in Mutas. He has 1,400, 1,500 gas. He starts Adrenal Glands and actually goes Greater Spire. And Ultralisk Cannon. So he's not going for that immediately. He's just going to stick with his original plan with the Ultralisk Cannon, with the tech here. It's safe to do that. Yeah, he could. He actually builds a Viper there as well. Yeah, he could switch and could have started with a couple of Mutalisks, but the safer play is really to do what he's currently doing. Yeah, I mean, he can always do it later. And now he has both Hive Techs, the Ultralisk Cavern and the Greater Spire that he could switch into. He has a 4th base that's totally safe. And with the amount of map control he has and map presence, and the fact that Trust doesn't even have a 4th base, he can even consider taking a 5th base right now. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's nothing that the Protoss player can do to work against it. Now suddenly he blinks forward into the Zerglings, Well, that doesn't work out for him. Trust, he has a little bit too much faith in his own units. That is not going to work for him. That Immortal is also going to be caught off guard, and he really needed the Immortal to work against the roaches that we have.
Yeah, and also the Ultra is coming later, and this is like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the Observer saw that those Krugers were there. I can't believe he blinked on top of the roaches like that. I think Trust is getting a little bit nervous or something here.
I mean, look at the investments here. +3/+3 has been started. The Renal Gland's nearly done. The Cartoonist Plating is on the way, and he builds mainly Zerglings. That saves up all the gas that he has for the Ultralisks. With the Ultralisks, it's very important that you make sure you don't get too many, or that you attack in positions where they can really get the surface area. It's a little bit sneaky to just drop that hatch right next to the pylon. And the Zerglings are just a little bit outside of the range, and are like, come on, warp something in.
Zealots actually instantly, and they're going to be cleaned up. Well, yeah, I think he's not going to be able to get the hatch.
No, that's not going to happen. Not with all the units already streaming down. 3-3 isn't done, but Adrenal Glands is completed, and that turns those Zerglings into Cracklings immediately. They are just super fast right now with the attack speed, and here come those Ultralisks that we've been talking about.
This Protoss army that's walking across the map looks so pathetic.
Yeah, that's 55 army supply against 115.
It's
that's
like
nothing.
So silly. The Zerglings alone could kill this army. I mean, this is...
Winning the next battle for Symbol is going to be like stealing a lolly from a child.
He's going to kill his Protoss army, or force a recall on it, and then Trust is going to type GG. He may get the hatch, but that's all he's going to get here. No cancel, but Symbol is so ready. He's so ready for this, man.
Yeah, he should just run past there. No, there we go.
There's the recall, but he loses so much in the process.
You know what? I would have loved him to just go for an abduct on the Mothership Core and snipe it with the Queens.
I would have loved to see him go over the Protoss army and pull an Ultralist on top of the Stalkers.
Well, if he just goes and snipes the Mothership Core, it's basically like in Warcraft 3 sleeping the Archmage when you attack with the entire army. He can't TP out anymore, and if the Protoss player here couldn't recall anymore, he would have lost the entire army. So I feel that would have been the perfect move for him. I do not think that it matters though, because this is just an onslaught that you can't
double the army supply, better composition. The wall here is tight, but it's just buying time right now. Essentially, Symbol can switch into Mutus, he can switch into Greater Spire. He's dancing his Ultralisks.
Oh my god, this is an endless barrage of attacks just going down on the Protoss player. And Symbol is having some fun in game number 1 here. A couple of interesting choices by Trust, especially those blinks that he decided to do into the Zerglings, basically. He's going to lose the game. There's the GG call. And Symbol, he takes the first map in the series.
That was a pretty dominant play as well.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Trust's play was a little bit shaky. He definitely had his moments, man. His third base was really greedy, but he had some good force fields, and his play was solid through the mid game. When we started getting to the late game, he really made a lot of mistakes, especially that blank was